This is my husband, Nathan. This is Sage.
Sage, nice to meet you. Hey, how you doing?
Good. Good to see you.
We're ready to go live?
You are live.
How was your
We
trip to
are live.
Denver?
Well, I had a great time.
Live
Yeah?
I was just telling some of the other members that there are gonna be ramifications from that meeting. A lot of interesting things done and said.
Exciting.
Good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock and we're going to call the Harrington City Council meeting on July 13th to order here right now. First thing I'd like to do is do a roll call. Position number 1, Joe Armand.
Aye.
Position number 2, David.
Present?
Present. Position number 3,
Here.
here. Number 4 is not here, I don't believe, or is that Peter? Is that you?
Yeah.
You are 4, yep.
I'm here. In light of my
And-
work, it might be different.
Okay. And no Levi at the moment. So we'd like to thank you all for coming tonight and recognize anybody who would like to get on the meeting minutes here in the audience. Marge Womack,
Stan Roth.
Stan Roth,
Denise Holling.
Tanisa Holling,
Chris Moritz.
Chris,
Sage Wilson.
Sage Wilson,
Emily Hansen.
Emily Hanson, and your
This
husband,
is my
Nathan
campaign
Hansen.
manager.
your campaign manager. Sorry about that.
Nathan Hansen. Yes.
Well,
No,
welcome
he
to our
is my
meeting.
husband.
Good to have you all here. Any public comments that have to do with the agenda? Okay, moving right along. Additions to the agenda.
I think the council should acknowledge the recent passing of one of our former residents, Mrs. Diane Michelson, Tuesday of yesterday.
Okay,
I'll say more at the end.
okay.
Jess, I'd like to talk about water leaks, weeds, and what was my third one?
You say water
Oh,
leaks?
and library board stuff.
Was the first one water leaks?
Yes.
Water leaks, weeds, and library board.
Thank you.
I just have a couple. Online payment ability, the credit card, pay by credit cards. And street crack sealing, tar on some of the streets, just discuss the condition of them.
Okay. Well, let's jump into the first thing right now, and that is the approval of payroll.
Move to approve the payroll as presented.
Second.
So it's been moved by Stephen and seconded by David. Any discussion?
I have none.
Well, if there's no further discussion, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the payroll as submitted. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. No, aye to the positive. Get ahead of me there, sir.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, gentlemen. The next one will be the claims. This should be the last month we see one for the state auditor. This is the bill from the closing or exit conference.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we saw part of this at the last.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Probably the bottom 8 or 10 items
Yeah,
here.
Okay.
Correct.
What numbers are you talking about, Joe?
Just that, some of these numbers we'd already seen at the last council meeting. I think the first part of the month, up to June 10th, we'd seen it at the end of June in the last council meeting.
Refresh my memory, did that include 524?
No, I don't think it did. Well,
What date are you guys looking at?
520.
Check register,
It should be registered for the 6th of July.
6 through the, 6/1 through 6/30?
yeah,
7/6.
and it begins, transaction
Right.
begins with 562. And they're all sequential. Good job, Jerry. It was sent out, in a separate email from,
Okay, I obviously don't have that one even printed.
So my question is on 524 US Bank for 504.17.
Credit card.
Oh, okay.
Stephen, we're at 524, I don't even have a 524 on this.
So I'm looking at claims 7/6/2022 PDF, which was in Jerry's, the email that had all the attachments on it. And then it starts with transaction 475 and about a little bit under halfway down, there's 524 US
Okay.
Bank 504.17. And Jerry just said that was a credit card payment.
Right. Thanks, Jeff.
Any further discussion? I don't think we even
I
had a
don't think
motion
it-
to,
yeah.
to
I'll-
accept that.
Move to approve the claims as presented.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Stephen Hardy, seconded by Joe.
Levi. By Levi.
Joe can have it if he
Sorry about
wants, that's
that.
fine.
Don't want to deny him, my friend.
Fine, the one of Gloria will come at the end of the meeting, don't worry.
Any further discussion?
The Lincoln Sand and Gravel, 570,
That's,
that's the town square
Yes.
stuff, right?
yes,
Yeah.
and it's been paid for by them.
Which check register are we voting on again, please? 6/1,
5/7.
6/27 to 6/30.
Correct.
6:27 to 6:30?
There's no 5/7
Thank
on
you.
this. I'm,
I have a question, if I may.
Sure.
Have we officially embraced David Bingaman as our
Yes,
one
attorney?
of,
Did we vote on that?
yes,
Yes, we did.
about 2 months ago.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not seeing a 570.
Transaction
May
570.
11th, I think it was, Peter,
It's on a different,
in May.
May
it
11th.
was sent out Thursday of last week.
Oh, so we're moving on claims across two separate documents then? Because I'm looking at a claims 7/6/2022 that was sent on Jerry's Monday email.
Okay, yeah, this one is same date, 7/6/2022,
Oh, okay.
to
I
that
see.
day.
It
And
just
this,
says Jerry Lee City Clerk check register. Is that correct? The one 562 to 573?
yes,
So
Okay.
there's two payroll at the top of it.
Yes.
Okay, I got it.
mine doesn't even say that.
We'll take that from you though.
Probably gonna need to sign one.
But as long as those transactions shows up on all of them, it's yours.
Oh, yeah, I guess I would know some of this one.
Need that, Joe, or David? Thank you.
This is the one, yes, we're looking at.
Thank you, Jerry.
I got a quick question, maybe for the clerk, is 573 Sunshine Disposal and Recycling, is that just for the garbage, Jerry? Or
That's
is that-
refuse.
or does that include, that doesn't include the recycle or the green bin, correct?
No,
Okay.
that's just household trash.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you for that clarification. I thought it was, but
The payment to James A. Sewell and Associates, $29.39.25. What project is that for? You've completed, is not for Adams, is it?
No,
Adams Street covering?
Adams Street is TD&H.
It's what?
TD&H,
TDA?
different engineering company.
Mhm.
Sewell's the
Sewell
one that's
is our-
handling wastewater, correct?
Yeah, wastewater
Okay.
treatment plant.
What was the bill from Lincoln County Public Works?
That's the municipal solid waste.
The what?
That's the municipal solid waste drop-off. When Sunshine picks up and loads up their truck, they take it up there, and then they pay a fee, and that fee comes back to us to dump all the garbage that we produce.
It's the one we refer to as tipping fees.
that's the tipping fees? Gotcha. Have they been, I don't recall seeing this separated on other bills. It's always,
Yeah, always, we pay
Eight
Sunshine,
years.
we pay
$8
Sunshine for
monthly.
picking up the garbage and for the service of the cans. And then we pay a tipping fee
That's a
to
big
them,
sigh.
then we pay Lincoln County
Yep.
Solid Waste for dumping the tube,
now,
recycle and the green waste.
so I can wrap my head around this.
Garbage is.
The tipping fees, or is that based on weight?
Yes.
And then
I hear you.
the Sunshine, that weight has nothing to do with that one,
That's
correct?
transport.
That's transport only.
That's just a contract, yeah.
Have the monthly fees to Sunshine increased with the increase of fuel?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
they have.
But if I remember correctly, we don't see the full impact of that until the end of the year, where they give us that wonderful Christmas present of saying, this is how much more gas we spent than we thought we were going to, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I do believe we should be negotiating that, our contract with them, I believe it was this fall, I was told, or
That's what
maybe
I
in September.
understood.
That's
year.
why we held off on
Yeah.
doing a larger restructuring of the garbage rates in anticipation of that. So
Correct.
I agree with you, David.
Yeah.
We have a motion on the floor, don't we?
Yes, we do.
I can second it.
Was moved
I'm good.
by Stephen and seconded by Levi. There's no further discussion.
I'm good.
Okay. Then we'll vote on that we accept the claims as written. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen. So the next item on the agenda is our city council meeting from June 22nd.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes as written. Further discussion?
Looks clean to me.
I'm good.
All in favor of accepting the minutes as written,
Aye.
say aye.
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 Opposed, the same? Passes 5-0. Thank you. How about our new treasurer? Have you got a report for us?
I do.
Well, we're looking forward to it.
Wonderful. Let me get these all straightened out here. A copy for everyone. Thanks, Lauren. So So I have two different documents here. The first is the LGIP, which is that local government investment pool. And the second on the legal side is the treasurer's report for the month of June.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you, Sage.
I think there's two stuck together there.
Quick side note, Sage, are you set up to receive emails on the treasurer at
Not yet.
current?
It has been set up.
Okay,
There has been an issue in them being able to access it thus far.
okay.
That's a good way to put that. You need to sit down, please. And I apologize for my little ones today. And then I'll grab the other copy that I do have.
She's new.
She's new?
They're ribbing me about the fact that I'm accepting paper.
Oh.
Generally, I despise such things.
I prefer
I'll
hard
work on
copy.
getting it digital.
So the item in red, Sage, is the one from the Adams Street
Yes.
project.
Mhm.
So I can add a little clarity to that. During the process, which is still ongoing, approving that money through the TIB, because of the current charges there, they haven't finished that totally. That's money that we paid out, and we have to in turn reapply to get that money refunded to us, and it hasn't happened yet. So that account was showing up as being deficient by our treasurer and the master who trained her. And today, Jerry filled out a couple claims on a newly opened site, so those should be deposited back to us hopefully very soon.
So this is as of July 1, so this is just
Right.
June, so anything that's happened
Right.
since then I don't have.
And I just got emails tonight on this.
Okay.
There was feathers ruffled throughout the county on this and the whole area. So there's been new things brought to light today, and it's moving forward at a faster than normal speed.
Oh. Oh, news travels fast,
So
right?
it's all good from my point of view on that.
Good. And then, like I said, the top sheet, the smaller sheet is the LGIP, and that is just the investment interest earned in the green box there for the last month. And then you can see the breakdowns and the percentages of each fund that is put into the LGIP and how it's allocated with that interest.
So we're now getting $608 a month interest off that money,
That was this last month, yes.
and it was like minus $11 in the past.
Yes, much better setup this time.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit confused though, because I thought it was my understanding that the LGIP was supposed to at least keep up with prime rate. And $608 interest on oh, never mind, I'm thinking per month versus per year. That's why. Ignore me, I'm gonna figure out what I'm talking about.
We don't blame you for wanting more money for us, Stephen.
At least it's positive.
Yeah, that's a
For
good,
one
Yeah.
case statement this afternoon, and I was terrified.
Yeah, I don't even mine anymore.
Yeah.
a
Lost
good
more than I
idea.
put in.
Okay, so we're almost crossing 1%.
Any other questions for Sage?
One comment, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
I did not do it alone.
that's okay.
Mike has been wonderful in getting me trained and learning all of this, so, yeah, it's been fun.
Good. Did you get your wish list put together?
Not quite, but I plan to.
Okay.
It's been a kind of hectic last couple days, but I did meet with Mike both Monday and Tuesday evening, so I plan on getting that wish list to you, probably by the end of the week.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else you need? You know how to get hold of us.
Absolutely,
All right. Thank you, Sage.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
absolutely.
So we have a guest on the floor tonight, Emily Libert.
Libert.
Thank you.
Emily Libert Hansen.
The floor is yours here to,
Okay, so tell me where you would like me to stand to address
you can stand,
Okay. All right. Well, I am Emily Libert Hansen. Thank you so much for letting me crash your party tonight. I do have to say though, we've been to several city council meetings, and it's fabulous to see the support here in your small little community. I'm impressed. Kudos to all of you for being here. So
Excellent.
I am actually running for Lincoln County Treasurer. So you should be getting your ballots. I believe they were mailed yesterday, so you should be getting them any day now. So my name will be there under Treasurer. I'm here kind of as a method of introducing myself. And one of the things that I really wanted to do with this campaign is to help educate the taxpayer on what the Treasurer's Office does. I actually have been Deputy Treasurer for Lincoln County for 10 years. I have an additional 10 years government accounting experience prior to that in the state of Utah for both the school district and Salt Lake County Fleet Management. And then my husband and I here, who is, I call him my campaign manager. He's my biggest fan. I don't know what I'd do without him. But we actually owned a grocery outlet store in Fremont, California for almost 6 years prior to my stint in public service. You know, lots of people don't have any idea what the treasurer does. Sage is learning. I'm so excited. I actually am the banking investment deputy for Lincoln County currently, so I deal with the LGIP daily. So I don't know if your interest rates are different on a city level as it is on county, but that interest rate has drastically improved since the first of the year, and it changes every day. I'm assuming it would be the same for you guys as well. But the county treasurer basically acts as the bank for the county, all county entities. So that includes the departments such as sheriff, public health, public works, the different court systems. But we are also the bank, per se, for both hospitals in the county, all 9 school districts, all fire districts, all park and rec districts, the cemetery districts. Any voucher or bill that any of those entities wants to pay is actually issued through either, if it's the schools, it's usually ESD, but the county entities, it's through the auditor's office. And all of those warrants are redeemed through the treasurer's office. A lot of people don't know that. So we are actually managing close to $70 million right now, with about 10 million of that constantly rotating through our doors. And the other thing that a lot of people don't know about the treasurer's office, or maybe you do, but we process all real estate transactions that occur within the county boundaries. So right now, we're processing a little over 100 documents a month for property transactions in Lincoln County. Not all of those are necessarily sales. If there's, say, grandpa's giving his land to grandkids, that comes through our office as well. And then, yeah, I mean, the county treasurer is the custodian of public funds. So you probably should know, if you don't know, you should know that your property tax statement comes from the county treasurer. So we collect all of the property taxes as well. We do not set them. People have asked me if I could lower their taxes. I'm sorry, I cannot. Talk to the assessor about that one. That's where that comes from. But in a nutshell, that's what the county treasurer does. I love my job. I love what I do. I've been actively preparing for this campaign for about 6.5 years now. I am not running unopposed. There are 2 gentlemen running against me. But I am asking for your vote for Lincoln County Treasurer because I truly believe that I have the experience that matters. I have been in that office for the past 10 years. I have an intimate understanding of the importance of policy, procedure, transparency, integrity, and responsibility with public funds. It's your money. I think that everybody would want to know that their money is in capable hands. So, I'm Emily Liver Hansen. I am asking for your vote for County Treasurer, and I understand that by voting for me, you're placing a trust in me, and I'm here to tell you that I pledge to honor that trust. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any
Thank
questions?
you, Emily.
Are there any questions?
Are you putting up signs?
Yes, everywhere except for we're running out. But
Yeah,
yes,
you would like a
there
sign?
are a few here in Harrington. Peter has one in his yard for me.
Yeah.
Around the golf course, we've got
Yeah.
some up going towards the golf course. Sage has one at her.
Yes, Sage has
The
one.
boys were just
Yeah.
talking about that.
Yes, they know
Yes.
my name. Huh.
Do you have any with you?
We don't, but we're not very far away. If you would like a sign, I can get you a sign. We'd get anybody a sign.
Well, you know where we hang out.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions about the treasurer or what the treasurer's office does or? All right, well, thank you. And we actually do have goodies for everybody.
Yes, we do. We don't.
We got the other things.
Here, any golfers?
Everybody looks at Joe.
There must be a
Just-
golfer.
No, I'm not. Just because I'm an insurance agent, everyone assumes I am.
We got some,
You're
if you don't, we got golfers.
There's an overly revealing question.
About whether or not you're a golfer?
We learned more about Arlington City Council with one question.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Again, thank you for letting me come.
You betcha.
You
Thanks
can
for
follow
coming.
her on Facebook.
Yes, my little business card has QR code to scan if you would like to follow me on Facebook.
And then you let them know tomorrow is the forum, the second forum that's
Oh, yes. thank you.
sponsored by
That's-
the Chamber of Commerce.
Davenport Chamber of Commerce is sponsoring a Meet the Candidates Night tomorrow at Davenport High School Auditorium. And here's the thing, it's not just the treasurer's candidates that are gonna be there, it is also the sheriffs. All 5 of the sheriff's candidates will be there. So 6:30, I believe the doors open at 6, and it starts at 6:30.
I hate to waste material. I have a card and I'd never wear the
Okay?
stud glasses.
I
You
appreciate it.
can, you already have, no, I won't say.
Thank you.
Where in Davenport is it?
I hate
tomorrow
to
The
night?
waste
high
High
school
school.
auditorium.
Okay.
Is it a question and answer type thing, or? is it-
So I know, so it's being sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce. I know that they've already formulated some questions, but I do believe they are going to allow the audience to submit questions, and then Mark Smith and somebody else will be gathering them from the audience.
So it's not a debate per se, right?
Not per
It's just
se.
a presentation of.
Right.
They'll let that, there will be some rebuttals.
Only one.
You get one
Each
rebuttal.
candidate gets
Yeah.
one 1-minute rebuttal.
So there's no mudslinging and fighting.
No,
I
I don't.
hope not.
Not a political debate here, come on.
I hope not. No, but so this will be our second Meet the Candidates Forum, and I can tell you the first one, and Peter was actually there. I personally was incredibly impressed, I guess would be the correct term, with the sheriff's candidates and how I appreciated the opportunity to hear them speak and kind of get a glimpse into what kind of a sheriff they might be.
Yeah.
So I strongly encourage you to attend, get the word out, let people know. It was informative. Would you agree to that statement?
It was a good session.
Yeah.
It's online.
Are they live streaming it? I knew they were
I'm not,
discussing.
I don't know about tomorrow, I'm saying the first one is online.
Yeah,
Yes, the first one is online. There has been some discussion that they might be live streaming this one, but I haven't heard for sure.
That's tomorrow?
Tomorrow,
7 PM?
6:30.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Yep, 6:30. And they're saying anticipate 25 to 30 minutes for the treasurer, and then probably about an hour for the sheriffs, and then another 30 minutes after that to kind of mingle, and you could come up and, you know, ask candidates questions.
Okay,
Nice.
All right?
good, thank you.
Good. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
thank you.
Thanks for letting me. And
Nice to meet you.
nice to meet
Yes,
you as well.
nice
You're
meeting
okay
y'all.
if we sneak
I
out?
have to say,
Absolutely.
I've been in a lot of libraries, university
I
libraries.
actually was
This
thinking-
is the coolest library I've ever been in. With all of
I was
these
thinking the same thing.
taxidermy stuff. I mean, I'm seeing a hyena over here. I'm just like, I'm impressed. But this is really cool.
It's one of our past mayors.
Is it?
Joking.
I was gonna say, I
I love it. I'm gonna come back. Come back. and-
That was beautiful, Joe.
well, thank you for coming.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Did I mention that we're live?
Levi, you can plug that back in there.
Yeah.
So,
That was
moving
fun.
On with our meeting. Proposed Resolution 235-2022. I know I've said it in the last 2 meetings that we were all done with the CAO, but we're not. this is one more piece of that puzzle. And this says that we will accept a loan in the amount of $366,750 from the Department of Ecology to be used for overruns or whatever we would need it for our wastewater treatment plant that's coming up. But in all reality, what this is a line of credit that we intend to never use. And the only time we would use it if all of the grants and the monies that we have and our system is already paid for by those grants, 100%. If something were to occur, this money is set aside and available to us. It's money that will never come to the city and be put into the city bank. It's setting in a specific place. If we need it, we have to file claims to get it. So
Line of credit, I think, pretty much.
that's basically what it is.
Have
This
we
will-
asked whether we can tap it for refinance in the old one?
No, I didn't ask that kind of a question.
I'm guessing the answer would be no, but
It's emergency money.
You have to apply for these, even though we have the money and it would be set there, setting for us, we still have to apply for it and show them funds that are needed and why we
Sure,
want it.
I know we would still have to justify it to them, but our existing loan for the work that was done on the wastewater treatment plant in the 90s or whatever it was, is it significantly more than 0.05% interest rate. So if
Well,
anyone
that's
would
going
be-
down with another loan that we're getting.
I heard that was in process, but is that a lock now?
No, it's not lost. The
Lock,
USD.
lock, a lock.
There is an error on that. It's.
On
I'm sorry,
this?
Yes. It is 0.5%, not 0.05.
Oh, that's kind of a
It's
thing.
I was
half
gonna
a-
ask
It's
about
half a
that.
percent.
Okay.
It's half a percent.
But the plan is, we're not planning on using this. And this can all be given back with no penalties, no charges of any kind.
It's 0.5.
So this was money that was presented to us by the Department of Ecology, the loan. And although it's a loan, it's still more of a line of credit that's there if we need it.
Yeah.
So I leave that up to the council. If you guys would like to entertain a motion to accept that.
See that?
There is 40 pages that went along with this from the Department of Ecology that are sitting down at our new city's lawyer right now. And he has another portion of that document, and I don't remember what it was called, a legal opinion, which he's already signed and has ready to go. As soon as we present him with a resolution, then the whole package would be put together.
Move to approve with the amendment on point 3 to say that the loan is a 0.5 interest rate instead of a 0.05 interest rate.
I will second with the amendment.
So it's been moved by Stevens, seconded by Levi, that we accept this loan, except change it to a 0.5% interest rate from 0.05. Further discussion?
Who all knows it? This isn't a blank check for them to go overrun.
No. This is for us only.
Okay, so what I'm getting at is like, you get into overruns and stuff, and if they see this, they're gonna naturally.
I got the impression this was almost a requirement
Well, that was
for the whole.
kind of a safety net.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's, the Department of Commerce is kind of saying you have to have this in the background.
And while we don't have to advertise it, any way we could legally approve this as a council would
Right.
technically be public record,
Right.
so.
Have we voted on this loan before?
On this loan, we have not.
Okay. So it's 0.5% interest rate?
Yes. If you use any of the money.
As the mayor stated, we don't plan on using it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a safety net line of credit.
Well, and especially the issue here where it says in the first line, specifically developing plans, specifically for the wastewater treatment facility.
Right.
It's not for anything else.
But the heading seems to disagree with what you said, David.
About what?
There's a resolution of the city council of the city of Harrington accepting a loan.
I was just going by what the mayor,
Yeah,
It's accepting a loan, but with no payout penalty, you can pay all the amount back and not have to pay anything for the privilege. Because point 4 says this is a 20-year term with with a no penalty early payoff option. So if you give all the money back, you won't be out a cent for the privilege of having had access to it. And given that prime rate is going up dramatically these days, 0.5% is a better deal than what we would get if we decided to, for some reason, even if we had the option to, but to go it alone and then to endure a cost at the last minute, we won't get 0.5% anywhere else.
but that's what the mayor, when you talk to them, that's what they explained to you. It's basically applying for a line of credit.
Correct.
Yeah, we're not
Correct.
paying, we don't pay a nickel on it, interest included,
Yeah.
unless it's actually filed for and
You
used.
dip into it or you
Yeah.
use it.
right.
Is that clear?
That's
And
absolutely
I did hear
correct.
the mayor say earlier that the city does not anticipate taking down this loan.
That's
Using it.
using the loan,
Okay.
using the line of credit. I'm gonna stick with that word.
That's what,
The money will not be transferred to Harrington. It stays at the Department of Ecology at the state level.
We're simply making sure it stays available.
Yes, it will stay there with our name on it. It has a placeholder for that amount of money. And hopefully, if we never use any of this, at the end, we just sign the paper back to them and that goes to somebody else.
So we won't have interest payments if we don't.
Not unless we used any of it.
And if we use any portion of it, does that trigger the whole amount being loaned to us?
I can't answer that question.
We pay
Okay.
interest only on that part of the loan that we take down?
I would certainly think so, but I would hate to be on record and be wrong with that one.
Yeah. Let's be sure of that. Would be my recommendation.
but all that's a moot point if we don't, this money to us doesn't exist.
Yeah.
That's pretty much true.
Harrington Opinion of Recipients Legal Counsel is what it's called. That's what's at the attorney. The Opinion of the Recipients Legal Counsel. Basically, the attorney's reading the document and the terms and conditions and signing off and saying, yeah, this is not detrimental to the city. Right. But it's pretty boilerplate stuff.
He sent us an email back with,
You want
he said there was a lot of strings attached as there is with
What
every.
day was that sent out?
Line 15 and line 31 were the only two lines that he had any concern about.
Oh, in that document?
Yes. That was David Bingaman. Yeah.
Yeah, it's this,
That was not it.
this is the agreement.
That, and he wanted us to know that this document that we used as boilerplate here was actually made up for another city,
What's the heading?
which you saw, obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and adopted for us.
Yeah.
That was what it is. That was sent out originally by Jerry, it was Monday. It's the one email with all the PDFs and the check register on it, and you just gotta keep scrolling. I had to call Jerry and ask
Move and
about
accept,
it.
seconded
Yeah, it's
by-
on there.
Yeah, I've already corrected.
Corrected this.
Did you find
And
it?
sent it to both of you.
Okay.
Yours doesn't do what mine does. Is there a chance that you might have a bit of
I was after the Tootsie Roll.
I don't think so.
When she said they had goodies, I thought,
But possible.
canny?
Mm-hmm.
Not there. Where's your?
You need to vote on that? Yeah.
It's been,
It's been moved and seconded, yeah.
yeah.
As amended.
Is
It's
it
been moved and seconded?
Yes,
As amended.
as amended, which was change the interest rate to 0.5%, not 0.05.
Could I ask who submitted this with the 0.5 error?
Yours truly. I just made the typo.
So you're sure it's not 0.05%?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are you sure it's not 0.5 or?
Hey, I'd make it 0.00 if it wasn't my choice, but I don't think that's gonna fly. With the
5.0?
department, yeah.
Do we have, well, that's probably in the first couple lines of that 40 pages there.
Oh, the simple agreement,
Yes,
what are you looking for?
the interest rate.
Oh.
Why yours doesn't show up?
Let's do this.
We need our banker here now, she would see that stuff. Now it says interest rate of 0.2%? Oh, no,
Oh,
interest rate.
Effective interest rate, which is
0.5.
0.02 is the interest rate, and administrator's charge is 0.03%. They're practically giving us free money.
Yep,
That's weird.
so what page is that on, Joe?
That is on page 17.
So on page 17, it describes the,
I don't know that, did everyone get this, quite honestly?
And what was it under?
No. Or
It's-
what was the title?
I don't think it got, it's a
Department of Ecology loan,
simple agreement template. It's basically the document that went to the attorney to be approved.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, I never picked that up.
So it's a 43 page document. You're more than welcome to look at it right here.
Yeah, that's for the
When it comes to this. Even though I don't know.
No, go
What
ahead.
do I have to do?
I'm gonna
Did
go
you wanna
through
read it?
anyway.
No,
Oh,
You know,
thank you.
I have enough self-loathing.
46 pages, I think I'll postpone
yeah,
that.
it's
Right.
a later date.
You gave me a thought in my mind that I'm going to carry for the rest of my life.
that was my afternoon
Every time I
reading
see
one
that
day.
name.
Oh, exciting. Call the question?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we accept this with the addition of changing the interest rate to 0.5% with those corrections. And accepting this loan. Line of credit. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say the same. Thanks, gentlemen, I think that was a great move. I'm not concerned about that particular one at all. Next on our agenda, it was sent out, I think a little difference, but my question was the nuisance ordinance, that I think we need to revive and talk about that again and see if we can't get that going in a positive direction. I know David worked on that, and I'm not sure exactly where that stopped.
I could shed some light on that.
I'm all about that.
Since we have if Bingaman's gonna be
Yes.
on board,
Yes,
the documents are ready to send to him to put his legal, work his magic, what will fly and what won't fly.
okay,
Prior to that, the history of this, working on this, the original, those ordinances, by the way, that you're referring to are number 462 and 389, I believe. And originally it was 462 we were concerned with last year. And we ran into problems, there was no fine schedule or no penalties. So at that time, I took and used town of Wilbur's fine schedule, penalty phase,
I don't think I have that one here, but,
and put it in there, and then I gave it to the attorney that we were using at the time.
okay,
And he come back and said, well written, all this stuff, but there's a problem. It interferes with 389. And I says, well, where the heck is 389? I never seen 389, didn't know 389 existed. So upon further investigation, I pulled out 389, and it's also a nuisance ordinance. And, well, I should say that's a nuisance ordinance, and what pertains to make a nuisance. 462 was specifically dealing with junk vehicles. However, adding to that, he said you have to make these work, you have to tweak this and added this, and he had about a 2-page report to do this, do that. There was like 3 or 4 things to do, and I chose to do the easiest one, and he suggested, is just to take this out and do there's a variety of options at this point to do with these 2 documents. So I chose to do the one that he recommended the most, and that was to eliminate some language in 462, because 389 already covered it. And then I did that, and then I sent it to him, and it was about a 3-4 month process of documents getting lost. I mailed a hard copy with all this to him, and somehow that didn't get it, and I find out that he really doesn't do ordinances and doesn't like them. So that's why the push to
that
get
was
somebody.
the one in Wilbur,
Right.
correct.
And I don't blame him, no hard feelings, but the urgency of this, the whole purpose of doing this was to put some sort of penalty phase or fine in there so people would comply. That was the whole goal. So I wrote it up, and it's ready to go, and now we have an attorney, and in the meantime, I was calling other towns, cities, to find out what worked for them, because lo and behold, the rules regarding vehicles, junk vehicles, towing away, and none of our stuff addressed, we weren't after impounding them per se. But they all go back to that modality, they think you're gonna tow them, and there's laws, and you have to have a regular police officer to do that, and a this and that, and it just gets complicated. So I'm thinking, I talked to Chief Banky at Reardon, and I says, hey, who does this stuff for you guys? Who does this? And he recommended, again, along with other people, David Bigeman, the attorney. He says, I got a copy of our ordinance, so, Reardon's ordinance, and he sent that. That's what everybody should have or did have. And that's what's working for them. And long story short, is my recommendation that we give them 462, 389, and Reardon's, and say, David, or Mr. Bingaman, this is what we want. We want a ironclad, as much as possible, ordinance for the city of Harrington. And the goal is to put in infractions or penalties. How do we deal with this? And let him do it. Because the laws have changed, I think, well, since I've done this, I heard that the law has changed regarding junk vehicles again. So it's beyond my expertise. I'm not a lawyer, and I can't keep up with Olympia. So I would recommend the council, the documents, I can send him, go, and he can give us his opinion, what works. If it's just taking Reardon's ordinance and just changing the words around, like you suggested, or that would work too. There's a few things that Reardon's that I personally don't agree with or think it's a fit for Harrington. So kind of a culmination of all of them. And the reason why the former attorney look at this, and I want them to type it up official for this. Because going forward, if it doesn't have their stamp on it, you know, we're opening up for lawsuits. Who's gonna defend this? They're gonna look at this and laugh if we do it, you know, just, whereas a bona fide attorney, I think I use the word sharp attorney, you know, gets into this stuff and puts their stamp of approval on this and what works. He's done, from what I understand, I think Mr. Bingaman has done others around, so that's the direction I would push it. And it could go tomorrow if you know, if that's need be. The only thing I was not aware of, and that's what I've been waiting for, is that do we have a bona fide new attorney or attorney that to go with?
I believe it was May 11th
Okay.
that he and I signed that.
Okay.
So,
So I hope that clears it up. If any,
no, I'm all about that. I want to get this going. Do you think it would be acceptable to ask for a ballpark number of hours that he would think that a job like this could take? Or do we just throw it out there and
well,
say take whatever?
we know what he charges an hour,
Yeah,
Which is,
the same as the other one. It's 180.
190, I believe.
Excuse me.
it's a lot of money, it's a 10-hour job.
Well, it's better than 385 or 400 an hour.
yeah. Number of hours, I don't know. That's why I would like somebody to say,
I guess we could ask him.
just a ballpark. I'm not holding him to 10.5 or, you know, under 11, but if he came back and said it was gonna be 100 hours, I'd say, you know, we like these junk cars now.
Can I offer
Of course.
with, I mean, David, your oversight, but I do have a couple questions. The document that we had amending ordinance, was that what was drafted to amend 462? Or is this 462? This,
So the document that you have is the one that was sent out in our email?
yeah,
That has been changed. It's, no, it's not gonna be the same.
it's not the 462 that was passed, it's trying to amend.
Right.
It's an updated one?
It does say draft, yeah, and I'm just saying, it's a draft.
It
was-
has the infraction part into it.
Right, okay.
The penalty phase.
So that's not the ordinance 462 that was passed in its day?
Correct.
Okay, okay, that's, I just,
should be signed in the
And I, for the life of me, if the former attorney had an issue with it, I don't know how 462 passed back when it did without,
well, yeah, because I can see where if you're using this ordinance to replace language that's in that ordinance, it needs to address that. So,
my goal is to, personal goal would be to give him these three documents, Reardon's 462 and 389, and say, hey, create one document that'll work for City of Harrington.
so what I'm offering, just on the side, is I will, if you don't mind, I can blend those together, what you're trying to do, and send it to you to look at. I just think if some of that groundwork is done ahead of time.
He's already done it.
Well, that's already there, Joe. I mean, I appreciate the
Okay.
offer. It's to the legal part because the other guy, Josh, Mr.
Okay.
Grant, it involves legal mumbo jumbo and what can and cannot be done.
Okay.
What we wanna do, we kick the can forever on this.
Oh, I
what we
know.
wanna do, but, and then do all that work, and then say, no, you guys can't do that, you know? I
No,
don't want-
we all want this to push forward. I'm just
Right.
trying to do it as cheaply as possible. So
Right.
that's, if
Well-
it's already done, then it's already done. I don't wanna do it
There's gonna be a
again.
certain amount of cost to it, but I really don't foresee it being a $3,000 bill or something like that. And to answer, the mayor's concerns, I guess it would not be out of line to ask him after he receives this, tell him what we wanna do. We've got some ordinance, or a nuisance ordinance
Mhm.
that we want you to look at, and these are our concerns. And how many hours do you estimate it would take you to put these together in a votable, a presentation for the council to vote on? That's where I go with that. And if he says, I don't know, take a look at it, a couple hours, or, I don't know, what, I guess my question to fellow members is what would be out of line to the mayor, or how much limit are we looking at?
I could see that taking 10 hours without a problem, but I'm not a lawyer, so I don't,
I tend to agree with Mr. Harmon. We could bring this together in one document before we go to the legal counsel.
it would be the
It
plan.
took me 3 months, it took a long time to come up with all, and the reason is, the two documents, 389 and 462, there's similarities, yes, and wording in there, and this is by Mr. Grant's suggestion. And so you're gonna have to, you can't just throw away one, it's more complicated, it's more complicated than to us, looking at it, what you can and cannot do. Because things are covered, just look at Reardon's ordinance for one, and then these others, we want the best ironclad one we can get. And for him to look at it's not gonna take him nothing to read through them. That's what he deals with, is reading and that kind of stuff. And he would know right away, scratch, not legal, this is legal, that goes in this. Has his paralegal or him or whatever type it up, or if he sends it back with all that, and we could type it up and then go for it, save us money too, but we just need that legal approval. Because I'm very confident right now, well, we didn't have, we're pushing the envelope of what we have. First of all, we have no way to enforce it, it's unenforceable. And, like I said, the laws have changed a little bit. I know of twice, one back in 11 they keep talking about, and then one here just, recently. So,
I don't see it costing 50% more to let him do it.
no.
And I think I have a possibility for enforcement, having done the job. I think we ought to institute the 5 plan. U5. That everybody comes in here and puts in their complaints, and it comes before you guys, not one individual for anybody to pick out in town. And you look, and if you agree, just stamp it, boom.
In fact, that's in one of the modified ordinance parts, as far as the committee, if somebody has a gripe,
Yes,
is written up to come address us. And other cities and towns have used this. It wasn't all my idea, but it is, a committee or council addresses this, and you get to a solution.
I think ours says the mayor, and I think it's
Yeah.
389, but that's got refrigerators and piled wood and manure and everything else in it.
Right.
Right.
My concern is, as much as we do all of this, I just wanna know if it goes, if we have a circumstance that goes all the way to the bitter end, that the prosecutor knows that our ordinance is going to give him something that he can enforce.
Right, and that's
Something he can prosecute.
Something they can prosecute.
Yeah,
Right, and
so,
that's where I'm going with
Brewery
this,
will be broke long before then, legal fees.
because
72
It'd be nice to see
Cadillac.
something. We get people in here daily asking for questions surrounding the nuisance ordinance.
well, there's that, we don't have somebody writing tickets or notices, but it's, honestly, folks, to anybody listening and here, we've gotta police ourselves. It's a matter of respect for your town, and, when honestly, push come to shove, can you make anybody do anything? Hell no. I mean, I'm just sorry, but I mean, that's the truth. This is mainly, most people will comply. But this is for scofflaws or people that repeat and don't give a darn or a hoot. And that's what the fines were. I think it's very generous, what the fine schedule that Wilbur uses and stuff, because there's a few others, I don't know off the top of my head which towns they were, but they were, like for example, $250 for Max, they got up 200, I think May Reardon's is one of them, it was a day. It could add up to, a lot of bucks, so I don't think that part, but, and to address Peter's, earlier concerns that, last year and through the work of this, it's not gonna be somebody going out and giving tickets to everybody every day and fines and all that. The goal is for them to comply. And I think it is my hope, and most of them will. If they know that they could face something like this, they'll comply with it.
Yeah, either they will or they won't.
Voice on this council who feels limited support for this effort, but the question I ask is, so we have an ordinance on junk cars, how about an ordinance on defective roofs or absence of paint on the exterior of houses?
We do.
Where do we stop?
We do have those already. And it's not in the nuisance
On
ordinance,
roofs?
but yeah, there's, I don't know what number it is, but it has been addressed in that ordinance, whatever number, you'd
It's
have
in
to
the
go through
box.
that box. Yes, exactly.
The box.
You're right. But
The
there's,
box.
there's a lot of ordinance in there that do pertain to that, and,
It's not being enforced though, so what's the
Correct.
purpose of yet another ordinance that may or may not be enforced?
well, I would agree with you, but for some reason, it's been enough complaints about it,
About vehicles?
about vehicles and such. It would pertain, the nuisance does, however, nuisance encompasses a vast array of stuff. It's just not that. They kind of singled it out in the author of this years ago, I think it was 94.
Dogs,
Yeah.
chickens,
I mean, all that stuff.
geese, goats.
But I would prefer to say nuisance, and it spells it out what constitutes a nuisance in the ordinance, the new one. The goal would be two, because other cities and towns have that spelled out. And, lost train of thought, but anyway, it's to keep the town looking presentable, and some people might not give a hoot, and others, it just drives them up the wall, so I guess how far does the council, or do we wanna go with this? Obviously, these ordinances and this situation has gone back for years, before I was on it, and before you were on, I mean, there's stuff dating back 50 years about stuff, or maybe even longer, I think.
So we're talking about $2,000 here.
$2,000 what?
That's,
Possibly.
that's what we're talking about $2,000. We just spent a half hour talking about $2,000 for a lawyer bill. And I don't know that it'll work. But I know that our city's not getting any cleaner. There's no more cars being picked up. There's some at both ends of this town when you come in. Hulks with no windshield, some of them with no hoods. So when you tell people, yeah, I live in Harrington, you turn off where the 62 Ford pickup is with the barbecue in the back, and then drive down a couple farther to where all the tires are piled up and turn right. And I live down there by the house across from the post office with the couch in the front yard.
Yeah. So,
That's what I see when I drive around Harrington.
well pointed. There's even an ordinance regarding how many vehicles you can park in front of your residence on the streets around here. Has that ever been
We
enforced?
already have an ordinance, so,
Yes, we do.
and that hasn't been enforced at all.
Because there was no provision to enforce it.
Yes.
And that was the main thrust, is adding a enforcement segment, or portion to it. And that's the only thing it basically changed. I mean,
I'm just uncomfortable giving government yet more influence in our lives, more control over us.
I see your point, well taken, and I agree with you in a lot of respects. But you and I aren't the only ones living here, and we have to, you know, unfortunately, it's up to you, the council. I would say, I recommend taking them and giving them to Mr. Bingaman.
So this is marked as an action item on the agenda. Is there an action for the council here?
My hope was to see some discussion and possibly move forward with that. Or say no, and just put it to bed and be done with it, and then when people come into the city hall, we can just tell them, no, we're not going to do anything about any of that.
So the action you're looking for is approval to send it to the attorney then?
Yeah, the only difference about this right now, as David just said, there's a measure in there to where you can actually
Right in front.
make somebody accountable financially.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have one gentleman in town here who has 7 or 8 cars, and you're allowed 2.
That
And
are
they
parked
park,
in front of his house.
yeah, you probably see him
I know
regularly.
exactly where you're talking about.
So.
That's what I think
And I
of every
don't
time I see
dislike the
this.
man. That has nothing to do with it.
Nor I, but they can't.
It's the behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And his neighbor's in here
Yeah.
a couple, 3 times a week.
And the amount of space they take up in front of the place that the people are trying to go.
Yeah.
And
So-
it's not the only one, and I do like what you wrote, that it's got clear timelines, it's got clear penalties, it's got clear alternate resolutions. I mean, it's very well crafted that way.
And, you know, the final stuff's gonna be more palatable, we'll say. It gives them, we work with the people.
Right.
You know, we're not Gestapo tactic and tow them off, because I guarantee you, Reardon's one, but a few of them aren't as lenient as this.
Yeah.
So I guess, like I said, action with the mayor, I'll come down with all this tomorrow and throw them out and get a hold of David Bingham, or Mr. Bingham, and kind of give him a brief synopsis of what we, what we want.
Yeah.
And he'll be able to say, oh, well, usually this many hours or whatever.
Ask him for just a rough quote. I don't know
Yeah.
what we want to call it.
That'd be
We
fine.
do that with
An
everybody.
estimate, yeah.
About
Yeah,
how many hours?
a rough estimate, yeah.
About how many hours it takes, because we already know how much he's gonna charge an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it can't be his first rodeo for this topic.
Right.
But like I say, if it took 10 hours, and it may or may not, at least we can assign a dollar figure to it.
What's that?
You already took the one and the other one and you've already put it together.
A lot of them, yes.
With all of the new ones, so he has to read that one, read this one, and then make sure that the one that you did is okay.
It's just gotta pass the muster with, district court if it goes that far.
That's,
So like
that
I
would
say-
be, yeah, I couldn't support any change that isn't gonna get the blessing of the prosecutor.
Can't support
It-
what?
I couldn't support any change from now if it wasn't gonna get the blessing of the prosecutor.
They refer to the district court's the one that, well, something
Yeah.
does all this. But keep in mind too, some of the snafu or bugaboo about a lot of this is most of the cities around here, Odessa, Reardon, Davenport's contractor, they have their own police departments.
Right.
A lot of them. And so that alleviates some of the hassle. This is unique, not really, no, it is unique, that you have to work that into, because there is RCW saying, you're the code enforcement person, you got whoever the mayor makes that person, full force to go do that. Now, that's where the laws of the gray area, so we want his blessing, what can be done, what should be done. Well, we already know what should be done, but can we do this? Or how do we achieve this goal?
Say, I think the group right here ought to be the code enforcement. and let the US mail deliver the letter. And they can come right back
Will
in here.
work for, well, a couple of things with that though is if the RCW only talks about a code enforcement officer, I guess one would have to determine whether that includes a code enforcement committee.
I pull out my sword and knight you as a court enforcement officer.
Well, does the law provide for more
Are you
than one?
volunteering?
No, I've
The
been
other
there
thing, though,
before.
is that some of these things that are static, like a vehicle that'll be there today or be there the day after, that will work better for, but things like the dog ordinance, if I remember correctly, has provisions in it for things that can happen after hours. Having the council work as committee in those situations of immediate issue of dog on the loose, dog barking excessively, those kind of things that I think are in the ordinance, those would be less able to be enforced on demand.
Probably true.
They don't, there's provisions, and I think the attorney will see the provisions in a lot of, other towns and cities, for example, what I'm trying to get at is, there's some vehicles I know right now that are on city property. And legally, some of the old ordinances and RCW say, yeah, we can notify that person, contact them, and just haul them out of there. There is some truth to that to a point. But, see, that's what we're dealing with, and we want that option to do that if we have to.
These are POVs on city property, you say?
Abandoned junkers. There's a criteria. There's five, I think there's five, and they have to
5
meet,
points.
they have to meet
Mm-hmm.
2 of the 5 and 3 of the 5 or 4 of the 5.
Three
There's
of
all
the 5.
different. Well,
With exceptions.
those are all subjective. I mean, they're all, some people have 2 of the 5, some have 3, and some have 4 of the 5 you have to meet. But if it's a junker sitting there, you would have no problem meeting, that criteria.
Have we been in touch with the owner of those vehicles?
We currently have no enforcement mechanism, Peter. No point.
But yes, I have talked to him a couple times.
You what?
I have talked to him a couple times and told him that he needed to move the vehicles.
And see, in that situation right there, they're gonna say, Jerry, he's gone. They're not gonna do nothing. It's only Harrington. We've heard, how many people have heard that before? It's a small town. We can do what we want. So if you say, okay, you got 15 days, come down, mitigate your case, and so long to move it. Usually it's like 30 days, or you face
course.
this amount of money. And they're gonna, trust me, well, pretty much bet it'll get moved before they get the fine. If they know that we mean business. And if it's on city property, I don't think you didn't even have to go that far. I think it's like 3 days.
Yeah, I think the RCW,
It's just out.
which I think is cited in what you did, is pretty clear.
And that wouldn't even, that would pertain to, if your car broke down, a good running rig, a new Lexus or what, and broke down on city property, you have X amount of days to move it or it get towed. It wouldn't even have to be a junker.
The city might have some vehicles that might have to get moved,
I
huh?
was gonna
Just
say,
keep those
we might have to
hidden.
clean our own
Keep those
house in the
hidden.
process.
Yeah, that's true.
So, that would be my recommendation to do, and if the mayor and the council, I agree, it's a long overdue.
Well, I don't know if this needs a vote or anything of the like, but I would support getting some legal review to get this moving
Support
forward.
what, Joe?
I would support seeing it get moving forward, yeah. I mean, I'm in agreement with you, I do not like a police state. I came from a homeowners association where you could get a citation for having a dandelion growing in your front yard, and I will never go there.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference between that and having a number of cars which are clearly have no purpose other than collecting dust and are an attractive nuisance. That's an insurance term for kids jumping up on top of the cars and breaking
Yes.
their legs.
And they do attract that to some degree.
I would agree with Joe there on that. move forward with it, get it to the attorney.
I've heard three of you gentlemen, a motion would handle that.
Well, that's what I
I
was
don't-
asking, does it have to be a motion? I don't
I don't think
necessarily know
so.
that it does, I think it just,
Based on the council's recommendation,
I think it's I think it's a mayor's call, but.
Next subject,
Please.
do you have time to see me in the next few days?
Yes, tomorrow
Okay.
morning, I'll do it with.
Okay, sounds good. So, we have a beehive in the park.
Is that a hairstylist festival?
No, it's,
you've been waiting
You've been
for
waiting
that.
for
this,
that.
this is a multi-legged flying creature.
Oh.
Honeybees, nothing else.
The honeybees?
Honeybees, yeah, and apparently half the hive and the queen is gone. I was there last night, and there wasn't, well, it was still, I was there probably at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mhm.
Nice and warm, but it was, sun was gone at
Mhm.
that point. I don't see bees. They're coming in and out of there, but slowly. I, being a bee mess-arounder as a small kid,
Mm-hmm.
poke
Oh,
at
yeah.
bees with a stick or something. I don't think we have a problem at the moment.
Nope. Now, the
Okay.
ones that are there will probably have formed a new queen by now. There were enough of them to do that.
And do you think they will move on or stay there?
They'll stay there. They're, as long as no one cuts into the tree or punches a hole in the tree and starts digging around in there, nothing's going to happen with them.
And these are a honeybee?
Honeybees.
I
Yeah.
Honeybees.
I should know the answer to this, but are they the same, what kind of bees do they use for these, canola fields? and for
It's honeybees.
pollen?
They're the ones that pollinate.
Okay, so could they be a leftover from?
The chances are there's a hive somewhere that got big enough that the hive split. Half of them packed up, moved on, found somewhere else to live, and started their own colony. That's actually what happened. That's not speculation. That's what would have happened. I think there were, in Harrington alone, they saw 5 different swarms this year.
Oh,
Of
okay.
just, that was a really good year for bees, so hives just started splitting and going off and colonizing. But yeah, they're hunkered down in that tree. They're not, you'd have to chop a hole in the tree to aggravate them enough to get them to come out and come after you.
They're not typically, I can't remember about these, they're typically not the aggressive.
Oh, no.
They're single
No.
use. They're gonna die if they sting you. So
Right,
Yep.
yeah.
you're gonna have
The
to
only way they'll attack you, you can literally walk up to a beehive, pull the top off of it, and start pulling pieces out of it, and they won't do a thing to you until you start squishing them.
Or if
How
you
do
sit
we
on-
know they're not Africanized bees?
I can attest to the fact that they're not.
I could,
Through what mechanism, could I ask?
I was there when they removed them.
Half the hive?
Yeah. Yeah, the queen and
So what's the question? What we
No
can-
question, I was just bringing it up in case anybody had heard anything. That was just
only
on the agenda because we
Okay.
get people that drop in and,
the only thing I would say is if anybody ever decided to do anything to those bees, that you get a hold of a beekeeper to take care of it because there is a considerable amount of honey
In that tree?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
problem
And
solved, we gotta,
okay,
We
water
have
leaks.
We have beekeepers in town.
call my friend Mr. Pooh.
Water leaks, that was Stephen.
Yeah, you're doing that before mayor's comments?
You sure?
Okay. So, while Mr. Daniels and myself appreciate the increase in property values associated with having lakefront property,
That's
I
actually
was-
our new wetlands, that's not waterfront.
is that covered in our
it's a
critical
swale.
areas
ordinance.
ordinance?
It's a
We
swale.
didn't list a lake in there,
Yeah.
It's a
but
swale.
I know we've had some bigger things on our plates lately because no one wants a train going where a train shouldn't go. So I've been reserved in bringing it up, but I'm hoping if we're getting close to
Yes,
having that taken care of, that we could maybe retask water things to.
so we
Drain that
fixed
lake?
3 leaks in town in the past week.
Okay.
One on Glover, one on Third. The next one is the wetlands on Willis,
Sweet.
between Fourth and
And
Fifth.
I told people, I said, we've had bigger fish to fry. I mean, even that leak on Willis has been bigger than it is lately. It's been a small trickle compared to what it's been before, so.
Yeah. So yes, that is on the list.
Good.
The Vector truck got a new hose today, cause we tried to use it.
Always something going on with that truck.
Yes. So,
Cool, that was it.
water leaks, okay,
You know
that's on the
weeds?
list.
Weeds.
Weeds.
Crack sealing,
Oh, yeah. I have,
so you're talking about putting tar or actually fixing potholes?
the cracks. If, just a casual drive around town, Fourth Street, by the way, which was the newest asphalt until Adams Street, my recollection, and then Main Street, and up by the school, it'd be Sherlock and whatever, that little triangle, these are for parking and stuff. It's just very noticeable for the amount of water, moisture we've had, but experience tells me if we don't do something about these cracks to remedy a little bit, buy us time, address them with covering, we're gonna be in deep doo-doo in a relatively short time with major road repairs or
Mhm.
just a lot of issues that people aren't gonna really like to deal with.
Do you know anybody that does that?
I know that there's companies that do it.
Okay.
Ideally, that we would rent the tar machine and a crew do it, but we are not afforded probably at this time with the crew to do it, and I don't know how much it costs. I know what the former mayor, Nathan, suggested, I think the county, he's gonna contact the county to do it. I've seen a machine running around, but it takes a little bit of time. It's nothing hard. You don't have to, there's no technical aspect to it,
You just gotta,
but you need some warm, you're gonna be warm because it's hot and tar, but you need some bodies there. You need
some
help.
guys usually use air to blow them out and then hot tar.
The proper way would be to blow them out, the cracks first, and the ones that are Grand Canyons, you put some backer rod in them, which usually amounts to, you can either, some people use sand and fill them up a little bit so you don't use a ton of liquid tar to fill, yes. But, or backer rod is just a styrofoam, depending on the crack, what size, it's just a filler.
Okay.
And expands and contracts and all that stuff, but you don't even know what's in there after it's tarred. But you just seal that. I mentioned it probably a year ago or two to the other mayor, former mayor, about snow coating these sealant, especially a new asphalt, which Adams Street is. I'd highly recommend of putting a snow coat sealer, well, not a snow coat, but a sealant. I think it's a snow coat they call it. It's a liquid and it makes it a little pretty and bright and shiny. It looks like new asphalt again. But what it does is seals all the pores, usually done in the fall, later fall, for anticipation of winter climate weather here. It does seem to hold or help. People do it in their driveways in the Spokane Airport does a lot of it on their stuff. So I've seen it in action, they've done all that, so, and it does make a difference because, especially on a new surface like that. But however, the streets around here, the big ones is 4th Street, it's relatively looking, in good shape, but it's not gonna stay that way for long if we don't address that. And I guess, ideally would be to rent a tar pot and buy the tar and, a crew of 3 or 4 do it. I don't think traffic would be so much of an issue in this town or the city. But nevertheless, it's a couple people, at least 2 person job, excuse me. And, it doesn't take a great deal of time to do it, so it's a mobile operation. But anyways, that was my concern is, I know it's just piles up, but if it doesn't get addressed, your problems are gonna be even bigger.
I'm gonna see if I can find somebody that does it
Yeah.
and get a quote on it.
So a while back, I was looking to maybe get some of my asphalt repaired, and it fell off my radar. But at the time, one of the better places that I had found in the Spokane area and I reached out to was Black Diamond. And they were actually there. It was their, at least their trucks that were there for the paving for Adam Street. So, for whatever that's worth.
Okay, that's a name that you write down. And why I didn't think of it until after the fact, or right after, is I know somebody had mentioned that there was a hole on 4th Street, well, it was a water leak fix. But
Front of
why-
Tony's house?
Yes, why I didn't suggest some extra asphalt, or some waste asphalt
should have
from
thought of it,
Adams, go right
Gone
in
down
there.
that street and bumped
and
into
all
that
these.
hole enough times.
I'm sure they probably dumped it someplace, but not,
We could even put some cold patch in there.
Well,
Now
that would
now
work.
as hot as it is, but
but the hot mix would have been perfect for
Sure.
that. I mean,
sure.
well, shoulda, coulda, woulda, sorry to bring that up.
Next item, online banking.
Yeah. In regards to, an email that was sent out, I do believe other councilmen have received that. I know it's been a couple years, it's been suggested some time ago to do this, and the answer was, at that time, too many people like cash transactions. But I guess recently, and maybe the clerk could expand on this, say more about it, that people have inquired about it. My thoughts on it, I think it's a great idea. Those that continue to pay with cash, they might come across to, come around to pay them by debit or credit card. And I don't know for sure, but it just as a thought, it might prompt quicker response in payments if people are paying by credit card or debit card of that
Mhm.
nature. And I just looked at it, are you familiar with what was sent out, the IntelliPay?
No.
Either one, I mean, I go for it myself, and if we don't like it, we can get rid of it, is what I'm seeing. I don't know all the nuts and bolts, but it doesn't look like it's overly, the fee burden is on the consumer doing it, and there's some, there's different levels and tiers of what you choose.
And my concern, I'm open to trying it. I have no objections to trying it, but I would hope that the council, the clerk, the mayor, anyone who hears of these meetings would be crystal clear with everyone involved that this is not a rate increase. If you pay a 3% fee to pay your bill on credit card, that's your convenience fee for the way you choose to pay. We did not raise rates.
True.
We did not raise rates, because that's how people are going to see it, that the council raised rates by 3%. It's like, no, if you don't want to pay that fee, pay with cash or
Write a
pay
check.
with check, but we did not change rates.
I think, that's a good point, but I know that's on the higher end of the fees, but there's some in here, if you pay by debit, I think it was a lot lower than that.
As I told Jerry, it's real simple from my point of view. Put a note on your next water sewer garbage bill, how many people would be interested in paying with a debit card? And if you we got what, 249 bills go out? Something like that? I think there's a fee to us for setting this all up, isn't it? If,
No,
no
there's not.
fee?
No
I mean, as long as you get more than 25 people, if it's to do something for 20 people out of 249, then
So if I can interject, my industry has a similar program because we can't discount the rate. If your insurance rate's $100, I have to collect $100. To do anything less is against the law. So it's the same thing. People put in a site similar to this, they put in 100 and it shows them right in front of them what the fee is going to be to them in addition. And when it's done, the $100 goes into the trust account and they see the other charge on their debit card or on their bank statement. If it doesn't cost the city, I mean, we have to pay for the service a small amount as a convenience, but if it doesn't cost anything to the city, it's pretty straightforward.
You see, the credit would pay a higher fee, and the debit is a lower processing cost to the merchant.
And all they're doing is, this company's just
So-
transferring those Visa, MasterCard fees onto the consumer is all they're doing.
So I fill out these things every day with every one he takes. If average bill's 160 something. So what's 2% of 160?
$1.60.
So it's gonna cost you $1.60.
Three,
We were
$4.
at one check a month from our house to the city of Harrington. And when they're gone, I don't know what we'll do.
You'll pay $20 for another book.
Probably so. Yeah.
Copyrights, whatever it's-
So I'd love to do it online, but as long as it doesn't cost the city anything, I think that's a great thing.
I'll bear that in mind.
But I still think you'd find out how many people are
Oh, no,
interested.
from bill pay.
It's already
Just a-
prepared. on
Just a
the-
yes or no. Yes or no. And when you bring your bill in, yeah, I'm interested.
What was that, Jerry?
It's already put on the next bill. When I print the next bill, it'll have that on there.
I'm probably more interested in a discussion about whether we should take cash anymore.
When my wife was hauling it to the bank a couple times a week, I was not real thrilled about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because people will assassinate you for $25 nowadays, let alone if they knew you had $1,000 in a bag in your car. So,
And I don't disagree with you, but a governmental agency not taking governmental legal tender is
Yeah.
my struggle.
yeah,
I think there's some laws that would pertain to that, but we could have, that'd be a fine line, that'd be a lawyer question. But yeah, I think you're right.
I can't pay my income tax in cash.
But it might, the goal would be probably to cut down on that cash flow, how much is,
I guess I'm gonna get a lot of pennies.
anyways, that's the two I
Okay,
have,
well,
so I'm good on
we've
those.
had some discussion, we'll look into it and see if we can find out some more on that. Last one was Peter.
I had two more, but you can go to Peter next.
I'll wait until you're done.
No, go, you can go, Peter.
I'd just like to acknowledge the passing of a 10-year or so resident of our town, Mrs. Diane Michelson. I had the privilege of knowing her well, as I know her husband well, her surviving husband, Dave Michelson. And I just thought it would be appropriate for the council to acknowledge her passing. She was a wonderful person and apparently had overcome crushing hardship in her life more than once. And I just thought I'd like to share that with the council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where'd she live, Peter?
Pardon?
Where did she live?
She lived in a room up at a hospital in
Oh.
Spokane
Okay,
towards the end of her life. But she
Well,
was,
He might be referring, where does she live in town?
in town here.
Where did she live in town?
they lived in the trailer park for a while,
Okay.
and her husband still lives in their family home. I don't know the address, but it's on Third Avenue.
It's 2 houses south of Nathan Love.
Was he a electrician, or
Pardon?
what did he do for a living? That name sounds familiar.
He was
They
a
did a
chef.
number,
For a while.
they ran a
He was a chef for a while.
Okay,
Highline
maybe-
restaurant in
Okay.
Ferndale.
That's not electrician, but, okay, the name sounds familiar, but she had passed it.
You'd recognize him if you see him.
Also did
Wonderful friends,
flags.
wonderful people, and
He had a business making a flag holder thing for cars and stuff. He would have a vehicle that had flags attached to it going through town and stuff.
he was they lived in Los Angeles for a while before they moved to Washington. Lived in Odessa.
So am I up, Jess?
You are. Was it weeds?
Weeds. It's been brought to my attention that while we did the spraying around the cemetery and parks and that kind of stuff, there are weeds that historically the city had taken care of before, as far as being on like the edges of roads, Like there was some weeds that were growing, I think, between the asphalt and the concrete curbing by the bank building and a number of other places around town that historically Scott would have sprayed. Troy doesn't have the certifications for that, so there were some citizens that were bringing it to my attention that they would like to at least see some of that still addressed. I was wondering if, given that we have still not as of yet hired a Public Works 2 employee, so we are short of our normal payroll, if there is some money to have the company that we had spray before come and do a little bit of spraying, at least around the more visible areas of Harrington, maybe not the full extent of everything we used to cover, given that we are down employee and it'll cost us more to have it contracted out than we had the ability to do in-house before. But at least some of the downtown areas and that kind of stuff, if we could get that addressed, it would be appreciated.
Okay,
Does it have to be spraying?
It,
Go over
the
the
desire
pole.
was to get rid of the weeds. Spraying would most likely be the most efficient way of doing so.
In my opinion, spraying is the least desirable means of getting rid of weeds. You spray them, you have to watch them die for 2 weeks.
Are you volunteering to go pull them all?
Am I what?
Are you volunteering to go pull them all?
No, I wasn't.
I don't
But if
think you
it's
have
on
any
city
other
property, it's city responsibility.
And to address what Stephen's concern with these citizens, if there are cracks and stuff, that's where some of this crack sealing
True.
takes,
You'll take care of a lot of
takes care
that.
of that.
You really create a fire hazard by spraying and leaving the dying vegetation standing.
But unfortunately, like to address your concerns, spraying, so many people look at a weed, and honestly, by the time you see a weed, or if you think it's a nuisance or unsightly, you've already lost the game on spraying. Yes, you can spray it, but you'll have a dead statue there. So you have to either mow
The
it or
question-
whatever, so
Just go down the drag with the weed eater.
fix the cracks, whatever we need to do, but if it's on gravel and stuff, somewhat of a sterilant, maybe a salt brine mixture on stuff that is absolutely no vegetation around there, you don't want it to grow, you could use other stuff than chemical, pesticides. You could use, well, salt is one of them, you know, or, but you're limited to where you're gonna kill the ground, and if you want it bare, that's what you have to do. You know, in early spring, mid-spring, before everything starts to take off on you.
You could put a bounty on weeds.
I'll check with Sid Paganelli again.
Okay. At least if we could see what a quote and a potential scope would be, that would be a next step. And then the last thing that I wanted to inquire about is regarding the library board. I believe we put a sign-up sheet of interest.
Yep.
How many? 0. Then 1. Okay.
Well, we did get one today.
Yes, we did.
So, I would like to suggest that we put an ad in the advertiser. As I've seen from many governmental or whatever you want to call some of these organizations, these boards, they will commonly say, you know, seeking interest in positions for these board positions.
Would you like to pin that ad?
Sure, I will do that.
Okay.
Does it have to be formally advertised?
It doesn't have to be, no. The provisions for how we go about it is if there is a list of names, there's nothing in the RCWs or our ordinances that talk about advertisement. But in the ordinance, in the interest of getting more than one interested name, and also in making sure that it has a wide awareness to the local community, which being that the library board doesn't also have to be in town, it's to the larger area of Harrington, it might be better to give it a little bit better visibility before we make our decisions.
You answered one of my questions I was gonna have. There's no restrictions on voter registration or residency and all that.
No.
Do we know if that, in fact, got posted on the library's Facebook page?
I am not aware of the library's Facebook page.
Okay, neither am I, so.
They have a webpage, so.
I'd heard that they would make a posting of that, so I just haven't looked for it.
So that was the end of the agenda add-ons.
Thank you.
Okay, mayor comments. I've been working with one, in fact, the first one who gave us a bid for removal of the trees. And the reason I reached out to that individual was that the second two individuals bid on a substantial less number of trees. So I'm getting together with the first person and also going to tell him that we found a place to dump the chips and very possibly all wood. It needs to be cut into fire.
Back up into the 30 grand. What was the first bid?
First one was 30, and in
Right,
talking
second
to him,
one
he,
was 20, but
high 20s.
yeah.
And the first one said that would probably cost, knock up 10,000 off him if he didn't have to haul all the wood to Spokane, and one of them was down by the lake here, so he's going to revisit his bid, and then we have 3 bids for the tree removal. And one of them did and one of them did not include stump grinding, so gonna get those bids so they're all reasonably for the same basic service. And then we'll present that and see where that goes from there. Contacted the city attorney, as you already heard tonight, about the loan. He's got a 40-page document there that he already called me and went through that and is ready to receive our resolution as soon as we get that to him. We have a leak under the railroad tracks at 2nd and Main, which I now refer to as 3 lakes. The first lake is right behind the pine tree, directly in line with Main Street. And there's 2 other holes about 30 feet apart. The line that goes under the railroad tracks up to the hydrant next to the tennis courts by the school. The water is running out on our side, downhill side, and it's caving in around the railroad tracks. I've been in contact with the railroad, and we have exhausted our capabilities and equipment for getting in there. So now I'm working with, is it DW or GW? DW, I believe. The contractor in Davenport there.
Excavation.
Yeah.
DW? Yeah. And this could be a serious financial hit to the city. Obviously, going under the railroad tracks, we're pretty limited as to what we can do. The railroad does absolutely nothing anymore. They hire everything out, and your contractors will meet all of their specifications and submit to their inspectors. It's kind of a funny situation what goes on there now, but the railroad has changed. So I'm dealing with railroad people now and one contractor at the moment. And we're gonna meet, we met today out there with 3 engineers and 2 of the railroad people. And they're gonna go home and we're gonna call Stephen Marsh from TD&H, see if we can't possibly put a smaller line. We have a 6-inch main that runs under those tracks.
Mm-hmm.
How deep?
Well, 20 feet.
Okay.
Well, I guess the first thing to tell you is they don't dig up railroad tracks.
No. Good.
My thought a week ago, my worst concern was to come down some morning and see the Grand Canyon with 2 steel rails going across it, because it all collapsed. And the railroad assured me that the 2 spurs on our side of the tracks here, the west side, are spurs that belonged to, I don't know if they still do, the grain company.
Mm-hmm.
And they run all the way down to the gas station.
Mm-hmm.
And that's their only purpose in life, is to store grain cars on.
And fertilizer.
Yep.
Yeah, whatever, anyway.
The side
Yeah.
rails are, yeah.
So, and there's sightings on the other side also. So they dug some sample holes and they're not concerned that it's going to collapse, but we already broke wires that service the tracks for telemetry and shut down the railroad a week ago. Because the wires were buried out about 10 feet out into the part that we had located. And when the railroad came, they said those should have never been there. So they didn't say anything to us about digging up their wires. And we had trains stopped 50 miles that way and 50 miles back that way. So the railroad came to a total halt for a couple hours, which probably several $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Any rate, they decided because of where these wires were that it wasn't our fault. But we're limited now what we can do because the wires are there. So we're dealing with engineers and I don't have anything definitive to tell you at the moment.
Did we get, have we seen a map, or have you seen a map of a ground penetrating radar of where these lines?
No.
Well, we don't have
We,
that.
we know where, not that I know of. Scotty was there when we put that line in.
But
That was put in back in the
GIS
80s.
mapping.
Yeah, did they just get done doing that? here?
Nathan would be the one to ask about that.
You mean the GIS mapping?
Yes.
That was all done with something other than ground penetrating radar. They used GPS.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not totally 100% accurate.
No, but so we know where the line is right now. And we know there's a post in the middle of the field with a gate valve. And when I say the middle of the field, I'm saying above the railroad tracks.
Okay.
East side.
Where does the water main go to and from?
Goes up to the, by the high school tennis courts, and then it goes up to the tank. That's the main line that runs up Main Street right
The
here.
water tank?
Yes, and that's how we fill our water tank.
Okay, so that's coming out of our pump.
It's coming out of pump
our
number
well.
3 right now, which is right behind the
And then
bank.
makes a 90 and heads that
Oh,
way.
so that sheds a new light on it.
Yeah.
So,
So-
that's our water supply.
When I talked to the railroad, they said, well, just turn the water off. And this is a young man, I'm guessing about 30, and I said, well, I don't think we can do that. We would shut the whole town off. Well, if you guys have a water leak, then it'll be on Harrington's ticket. And I told him if the train came down here, there probably wouldn't be a Harrington, son.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not gonna turn the water off unless we, it's trickling out of the side of the hill. So right now, we have a young man up there with his finger in the dike.
So, an input from a former council member who was listening on YouTube says they use ground penetrating radar, but only for water and sewer. They didn't do it for every possible type of thing on every property in the city. So, it sounds like there was radar, but not on enough to hit that particular need.
Now, would that also feed both wells, use that line?
Yes.
That's the main, and does anybody know, is that
That-
the only main line that feeds that tower?
Yes. If we shut it off, well, I'm using my old-time resource from down here, that we have probably 4 or 5 hours if we turn that line off and we turn on another one and shut those 2 lines off. There's enough water in the tank to last 4 or 5 hours
Well,
this time of year.
right. My
Have we
concern-
found, excuse me, go ahead.
Go ahead. My concern is, I'm not scared of, going underneath the tracks is not a real, it is an issue, but I know there is, underground boring, companies that could do that, but
Yeah.
I guess
Okay.
that's one option, but you'll get into it with engineers. Is there any way to bypass that completely with another new line or tie into it? I mean, I don't know, see, that's where this mapping of, lines would come in.
Well, the first thing is you can't drill a hole under there unless they use this operation now where there's a pusher and a holder and they push a pipe through.
Right.
You can't dig under there, you know, the kind that we would usually see behind a ditch witch? You can't push a line under the tracks that does not have a pipe with it. So they want nothing that go through that could collapse.
Right.
So you can't use any of the conventional ones that they use around town for fiber optic and that sort of thing. Not that kind of a thing. You have to push and bore, I believe it was called.
It's a boring machine.
Yeah. And they push the pipe through, and when they get that piece in, then they weld another piece on and keep going.
Yeah.
So there's a constant pipe, and he said it would probably be 20 inch or something like that. And then we would just run a new 6-inch pipe through this. If the worst case scenario came to. Another scenario, and they're gonna check to find out today, if we could put a PVC line through the 6-inch
Just sleeve the
line.
pipe?
Yes. And Scotty's concern with that was whether we'd have enough water to feed our hydrants for
Okay.
water flow for fire protection.
Okay,
So that's whether there'd be enough gallons per minute could go through.
okay.
There's also a company back east called Envirotech, I think, who has to have the line cut off, but they actually go through and smear some sort of something in there and seal the pipe. You have to get the health department involved, being this potable water.
Mhm.
It can't be exposed for more than a couple hours unless it's been pressure tested and sealed with chlorine in it, and so there's all kinds of things going on here. It's gonna require some engineering. And since the health department, maybe we're talking Department of Ecology, and here's a great place for some government money to be spent.
Mhm.
Is a new well on the other side of the tracks even an option?
Oh,
I couldn't answer that, Joe.
Yeah.
They have kicked around for years putting
Golf
another
course.
tower on this side of the tracks as
Oh, okay,
opposed to
do
that
it
one.
do it
Just
the other
so
way.
you'd have, yeah.
I haven't
again,
brought up
that's-
I haven't brought up the tank yet,
Okay,
and I'm not going to today, but
Okay.
we have to have our tank inspected, which means somebody needs to climb up there and with scuba gear inspect
Mhm.
the inside of our tank.
Back to the leak, have we found the leak yet, the source of the leak?
No, it's in the hillside,
it's underneath the tracks.
underneath the tracks.
Do we have any idea what percentage of the pumped water is being lost?
Oh, no,
Are we
Very little.
monitoring the level of water in the tank?
no,
Well, it's very little
no,
coming
very
out.
little. It's not, we're not talking a garden hose, we're talking,
pinhole.
No,
Yeah,
any
it could
water
be.
is not.
Just right now.
It-
I've got about a 20-foot diameter pond up there, and it takes about 3 days, 3 feet deep, to fill it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And did any of these guys, you probably get into this, they didn't send a camera up there and look and see?
I don't know that we could get a camera into the line. And I don't know if a camera would see a leak.
Well-
A camera would see if there was a blockage, but
And the camera would have to be rated for potable water if it's gonna get inserted into that line.
yeah. And you have to have access to get in there.
Yeah, true.
Well, you know, this could be, not just doom and gloom here, but my experience has been with water lines, and I had one show up. What's coming out is a trickle, take the path of least resistance water will. And you could have a little trickle or drop here, but it could be going, you could
Million,
be
yeah.
augering out a lot of other places.
Yep.
Big
We've
old
got about
sinkhole.
90 feet right now that was ankle deep in mud. And last Monday, a week ago, before we opened the ground up, there was water standing behind Sackett's garage. So, now that we've opened the ground up, and I don't know if that's evaporation or we've given it another place to go, we no longer have standing water. So,
It sounds like you're on the right track.
we're in the works, and eventually it won't be us, I hate to tell you, that's gonna tell us how it's gonna be fixed.
Is
I'm just
Any
thinking of a
insurances
location to move
from the city insurance covered any of this?
I didn't
Catastrophic?
even think about that.
I had that same thought myself, but I,
If there was, probably the last time you had a claim with them.
I will check with ACW. I will tell you, most insurance policies are looking for something sudden and accidental to have happened. Something hit it, it got vandalized, but wear and tear and simply starting to leak is inherently not gonna be covered. I'll double check.
If it is, we can make a lot more claims.
We've been doing it wrong the whole time. Well, we can't move the railroad.
So, do we have any idea of what this would potentially cost if they put a new line?
The fellows from DW,
DW.
I don't have my other paper with me here. He thought a couple $100,000, but I thought that was cheap. If you start talking about boring a hole and putting a pipe through, then you could be talking $1.5 million. Because they would dig a hole about 30 feet long, 20 feet wide, probably 10, 15 feet deep, with sheet pile. Have you ever seen them build a foundation for a building? So they would have a steel reinforced hole there that would force the pipe through. A huge job.
You said 20 feet wide?
Yeah. By about 30 feet long. It's
How
as
do you
big as.
support passing trains in?
No,
that's
this
not
is
what-
outside. You'd have one hole on each side
He's talking about an access hole for doing the drilling.
to put the equipment in that would push the pipe through, dig it out, come back, probably have a auger and a feed to bring the dirt out.
That's what I was gonna ask you, where, on that bank there, is it up here more, or is it's down on the ground
I'm-
level? Isn't it?
The leak is down below ground.
Well, I've just seen them do it personally. I don't know, well, some water, but they go under taxiways and runways and stuff, and I've seen how they shove it through.
The
can't
problem with
remember who
this one
does
is
it.
the railroad.
Right.
So, this is the end coming right straight up Main. If you drove up and didn't turn left on Second,
Right.
you go right straight up, and the hole is right there. There's where the water pipe actually is. And it goes over to, it goes at an angle at about 30
Oh, really?
degrees under. It doesn't go straight under. And
Oh,
the
good.
guys were saying today, if we put a new pipe through,
Straight.
it will go right straight across, and then you
Yeah,
don't
make
have to
anything
jog to
simple.
hook up your pipes.
That's obviously a very old line.
Well, Scotty said it was, the other ones were put in the 80s, and the railroad actually hit that line and had thousands and thousands of gallons of water laying around there. There's what the hole looks like right now.
Well, there you go, if they hit it in the 80s, it's
And I don't know if you can, there's the railroad lines right there,
it's residual.
those cables.
Prove it.
And you can see it's eroding and collapsing.
Giving it a shot.
And right there at the weeds is just about the bottom of the railroad grade. I took that today, and that'll fill up in about 3 days. That's probably 2.5, 3 feet deep in the middle, by a foot around the edges.
Do we have any idea what the nature of the pipe is? Is it asbestos?
It's 6-inch,
What
steel
material?
pipe,
Steel pipe.
steel. No, there's no asbestos there.
It's
This is
not.
water pipe.
So, it was August
I
in
think for
Seattle, and I noticed.
fire purposes, you need at least a 6-inch diameter pipe.
But the only thing this is feeding the water tank tower.
Thank you.
The water tower has X amount, so it's gonna have a lot of, this doesn't flow, this is the charge line to the tank, correct?
Well, there's a couple hydrants. There's a hydrant right across the street that goes across the railroad tracks.
And this line feeds them?
Feeds that hydrant too, and then of course keeps on going up to the.
Seal was basically.
Engineering wise, I can't answer that, how much a 4-inch line. But he thought we could put a, I don't remember what he called, the green plastic.
Dilution.
Big thick PVC green
But
stuff.
obviously, city of
Through
Seattle
the
has
6-inch
more
one.
resources and
And they were
They
gonna
probably
check
had a
on
machine
that,
to do
and
it
of course that
themselves.
would cut our costs
Actually,
quite dramatically.
it was
We would still have to dig a
it was
hole
about
and
4'11",
cut
and
and put in a
arms
gate
were
valve and
about 5 feet in diameter.
something there so we could actually open up the end to shove something through there.
That's all she did. Take a piece of lead, put it in there, take this jackhammer.
Well, I guess
And
you're
drinking
just-
water throws
Automatic,
just this
and
whole
it-
other thing into it with,
uh, environmental or
Environment.
ecology,
yep,
Don't mess with it.
health,
Department of Health, that's what they say.
Department of Health,
Well, it
correct.
sounds like you're standing by for more information from engineers and, powers to be, options. Insurance, we're gonna look at that, if there's anything.
Yeah.
So there's a good chance we could have an emergency meeting before then.
That'll be fine.
The railroad seems to have absolutely no concern that the railroad line is going to erode and come down.
That doesn't surprise me.
Because he said that we have no idea how many tons of stone are in there on the base of this thing. So, that was my first concern a week ago when this all started.
That's gotta be an
Were you
old
there looking
line.
at that the other day?
Well,
The
there's,
bid is made out of a lot of heavy stone, large coarse stone. I can't imagine that amount of water would threaten the integrity of a railroad bed.
Well, we honestly don't know. That's all that's showing up. There could be a hell of a leak under there.
Do we just reroute it
Unfortunately.
to another location?
How do
you
we
wouldn't
monitor-
wanna see train cars down by your garage, would you? No,
You've already
I
got an
agree,
easel.
I agree.
me neither.
I commend the mayor for having explored awkward possibilities.
I have no problem raising the flag when I don't.
Down by you.
Feel
there's a
comfortable
road
with
crossing
the
where you
information
have
you're getting
easier, better
from these
access,
folks?
or
It's taken me almost a week to
tear up the
figure
crossing
out
up
that
here.
the railroad
Then you
is
get the
going to
same
help
volume.
us almost zero.
Yeah.
Well, that's natural.
Anyway,
But
Well,
far
I
as,
thought that being them, I thought they would wanna grab the reins and take care of this operation and be involved.
we want
You would
to
think
reroute
so,
it
but-
right-
No.
right down Third.
No, not at all
Stay
anymore.
that way
It's
all
like,
the way.
it's just amazing to me.
Follow the
they'll
road.
be there to tell you what to do, but they don't want to.
Absolutely.
So, but going further, I mean, as far as engineers or opinions and all that, you're getting the right information, or people are.
The fellows I talked to today were well versed on that. They just got done doing one of these.
To reload solar panels.
I wish I could remember what his name was
Going
now.
further and further.
Lars, somebody was one of the engineers, and Smith,
That could be the trade-off.
he's the owner of
Put in
DW.
solar if you
Okay.
replace
And he
a
said they
power
did a $3 or $4 million job under the tracks last year
line. That'd get into the-
for Spokane, city of Spokane. So they're used to big jobs.
Then he can come down here and say,
And he said, you know, it's not impossible. It's just gonna cost you a couple bucks.
Western
And
Washington apples out of
then they were talking, you know, and I had Scotty up there at the time, and he said, yeah, we could probably cut both ends off, cut one end off at a time, prepare this, put in the gate valves and do pressure checks. That was another one they wanted to try and do, was to put a gate valve in on each side and actually pressurize the line and determine that the line or the water leak is under the tracks.
You know, this might be off topic just a little bit, but is there any easements or permission to do that? I mean, that's where I think the railroad would get into this a little bit. Do we have permission to do all this stuff?
With the
Currently.
right to emergency act, and I can't tell you exactly what that is. The lady who has to approve our engineering said we have full right to go forward with this project right now. And they own anywhere from 60 to 100 feet each side from the center rail.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was,
So it, and I haven't cleared that with yet with 60, and they seem to think that the edge of the railroad grade, the rest of it pretty well belongs to the people. But I can tell you, if you go on Map Sifter, you will see some lines there, and they won't tell you who owns it, who pays taxes. There's no tax being paid on it. And some of the people think they own it, who
don't we, the city, own that area where this is at?
there's some property between Janus and
Chris.
Chris Meats.
Yeah,
There is a couple of areas there that are like 10 feet wide that are ours, but we don't pay any
Oh,
tax
yeah,
on it.
the ecology
Right.
trade.
Yeah.
And-
years ago, there used to be a water tower,
Right down behind
Lynn.
Lynn Bailey's place, yes.
Yeah.
The cement bulkheads are still there.
That's why how old these lines are, but it doesn't matter to me, but I mean, go fooling with this. I mean, did the city ever have permission, easements? I guess it doesn't matter, I probably shouldn't say nothing, open that can of worms right now. But
Oh.
going forward, the engineers will probably look at, is there another route that would be easier to tie in, or just make a new line?
Yeah,
Feed this line to that
maybe
line to
we
the
could-
tower.
Maybe we could go up 30 feet
And
and
straight
straight across.
That way, if we get a leak, we'll have a water park.
And then we can charge.
Yeah, we
Yes.
could charge
All the kids
BNSF
could go
as a
hang out on
car
the
wash.
railroad tracks.
The train will have a bunch of comics here.
No, but it sounds like you got it under control. If you feel comfortable with those guys,
It's-
I don't know
it's-
what the guy's gonna do, really.
Kids party on the railroad tracks.
I don't know yet either. They're working on it, so.
Car washes are great fundraisers.
They brought out two engineers and the owner today, so, and I had two of the railroad people there.
Since this affects commerce a little bit, maybe our legislature or congressmen or, you know, those people.
The first two people I called a week ago were Scott Hutzel and Mark Stedman. And then they gave me people at the governor, they gave me all kinds of people to call. Which you can only call so many
Right.
when you're one person.
Well, another thing, I guess, from the EDC, and looking for my photo that I took of it earlier, that I saw today was some grants that the EDC has available for things. And it says eligible public facility projects, planning, acquisition, construction, repair, reconstruction, replacement, rehabilitation, or improvement of public bridges, roads, transportation, building or structures, domestic and industrial water, earth stabilization, electricity, natural gas, port facilities, rail, blah, 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 blah. And so it's up to $5 million if there's a committed private partner, so I guess that's not us, but prospective development, $3 million per project maximum.
But we're on the hook for 20 or 25% of that too, aren't we?
Yeah, it's better than 100% though. Because you can say that if Harrington doesn't have water anymore, that probably has economic impacts.
That came up today. The guy said, you know, when you raised the question here that the city of Harrington could be out of water, which could happen without some sort of rerouting of pipes. They said that probably has a lot of pull, and the state has several influxes, huge influxes of money
Mm-hmm.
that's been deposited to them into FEMA and into
Well,
Department of Ecology.
We have the ARPA money that we haven't spent, designated
Nope.
yet.
Nope,
There's,
we haven't touched that,
there's infrastructure money there, available there.
so.
We're also talking about
I guess we find a solution to it, then we can talk about money, how much it's gonna cost.
we
So
also have
that-
a fiber project that's going on that has to figure out how to get from one side of the tracks to another.
They're coming here tomorrow.
Okay, and if we build a proper,
They want to hold a stick fiber in.
I'm just saying, that could be their solution on how to get it from one side
I
to the other.
wondered how they were going to cross the tracks, because
So according to the railroad, you cannot use, they do it with the, well, Ditch Witch is the company, product that I've seen them doing that with,
But no one else can.
but not under the railroad tracks. The railroad has a couple of those brand spanking new ones, but they don't do that anymore.
Isn't the fiber to the school running overhead over the tracks? I think
Very
is what I was
possible.
told. For a
I
while
don't
there,
know.
there was even a private antenna line that was running from the
Yeah.
old city hall or one of those buildings to the top of the grain elevator.
A man by the name of Jim Yunt is going to be here tomorrow from Intermountain Express, and they are the company that's putting it in. And they're talking about coming from Sprague, which is where it's coming from, and going up to Adams, down Adams, and then towards the water treatment plant.
Right. Well, it's actually going to Sprague, not from Sprague, right? Because Sprague doesn't currently have any fiber, is what I was told by the commissioners. Sorry, I'm not meaning to be pedantic.
Feel free to come in tomorrow, be part of this little party we're gonna have here.
As long as my internet fires up, I don't care.
Who's head of EDC now, Janice?
Janice,
As you read off those criteria, Stephen, it seemed to me that this project triggered 3/4 of them probably qualify.
It's potential, but I guess at this point, we don't even know what our solution is. We probably, I'm guessing we would have to establish a solution, get a ballpark of what it's gonna cost, and then we have to go begging to everyone to help us not go bankrupt paying for it.
Yeah, and let's not forget, we have a railroad which has its own set of bureaucracy.
I'll be here tomorrow at 8 a.m.
It must be lovely to see a
Again.
government sanctioned monopoly.
Exactly.
In pursuing a solution to this problem, we should be mindful of the possibility that trains may have caused the damage.
Yeah, maybe we could sue them for that.
They could, believe it or not, these are the light tracks. I was told we don't have heavy loads come through here. The heavy loads run on the next line over and they go to Pasco. This line right here goes to Wenatchee.
Maybe they could
It
whistle.
goes
a
all-
little
it goes
bit
to
less than-
Chicago and,
Well, that
And,
way, that way, maybe.
ever over there.
Yeah, this one here goes down around Crescent Bar and down into Wenatchee. And most of these rail cars and all the coal cars are empty,
It's 50 tons.
according to the railroad people. But there's some big trains go through here,
Tons.
so.
Half as much.
You told you not heavy, I beg to differ on that one.
Yeah. So, any public comments?
Yes,
Stan,
could I talk about cemetery trees for a couple of minutes?
of course you can.
I met this afternoon with Jim Ells, Jim Knapp, and Jim Wilcox. We've begun to refer to ourselves as the Cemetery Advisory Team.
Good.
We don't want to be a committee or a board or anything like that, so we're just a team of guys. We spent a fair amount of time this afternoon walking around the cemetery looking at trees, particularly ones that would be eligible for removal. There's two kinds of trees up there. There's the kind that is interior to the cemetery, not around the edges, but through the middle area of it where there's stones all the way around them. They're surrounded by grave sites and stones. The opinion of the team is that we would prefer not to tackle those interior trees, that should probably be left to professionals. There's another set of trees that's around the perimeter of the cemetery, all the way around the outer edge on the north and the east and the south side. And a number of the problem trees are in those locations. The opinion of the team is that between the team, between us, we either have or have access to enough equipment that we could probably take down those trees with volunteer crews and save the city some money. We have between us and the fellas that these three guys know, there's chippers and there's a boom truck and there's plenty of saws and there's hauling couple of trucks to haul with, and there's a tractor with a front loader on it that we could use to move the bigger chunks of tree trunk. The chipper would take care of the brushy part of the tree, the smaller limbs. We'd run that through a chipper and we'd be able to haul that and dispose of it here locally someplace. The large chunks of log, we would want to cut up into handleable sections with a front loader so that we could put them on a trailer or a truck and haul them down. They're talking about at the bottom end of the golf course, that there's a place that they store wood like that.
Yeah.
And can make it available for anybody that wants it. And those are the trees that we felt like we could handle with a volunteer crew.
It would probably take several sessions to do it, including several sessions to take down the problem trees and some more sessions to clean up the limb part and the chipping part of them. And I wanted to be able to come to the meeting tonight with those opinions, and I couldn't do that myself because I'm not a tree guy, but they are. And they knew what they were looking at up there, and I put a lot of faith in the opinions I heard this afternoon. So I just wanted to offer those couple of opinions from today that when you're looking at contractors, whether a contractor would charge more per tree if he had fewer trees to work with. I have no idea how that price works.
Actually,
But,
most of those guys bid them individually. And some of the big elm or big locusts there were around 3,000 apiece.
Yeah.
The ones that were in the center area. Cause they gotta climb those and take them down piece by piece.
Yes.
You just can't drop them in the cemetery.
interior ones.
Yeah,
the
some of
ones
them
in
have to
the
be
interior.
lowered.
Pardon?
They gotta be lowered piece by
Yes.
piece.
Yeah, the ones in the interior
So-
portion.
On the ones on the far, I'm gonna say north side, there's a couple of them well, I think they're well marked red, but were you guys thinking about those
There
two?
were some with red X's on them. I don't think everything is marked that was on the list that you sent me.
True.
But we tried to look at the trees that were identified in that list. We did a full tour of the outside perimeter on those three sides. We don't see anything near the highway, the Tokyo Road, that needs any attention. The other thing that they felt that the volunteer crews could take care of was the trees that needed some trimming of limbs and branches.
There is a bunch
We
of them in
figured
there.
that probably we could handle that.
Yeah, couple
So I
of birches.
just wanted to offer that and be ready tonight to let you know what we've looked at, so that when you're considering the subject, you have that information to go with it.
So, being that city property, I don't know what that means liability wise for us.
We fill out a form.
Fill out a form and.
Yeah, fill out a form. My concern, I guess, would be that, I know there are a lot of people in the community that have a lot of personal experience taking down trees that I don't have, making sure they fall the way they're supposed to fall. I guess I would just want probably to have a little bit of indication of who's gonna make cuts to make sure the tree falls the right direction, and are we comfortable with that liability as a city? Because if the person knows what they're supposed to do and it all works out fine, that's good. If something bad happens, we don't have any contractor to say, you screwed it up, so you pay the bill and make it right. So I'm not opposed to the idea, but I think we need to do some due diligence on making sure that someone's gonna make sure things go boom the correct way.
I
Well,
think the ones Stan's
there's a-
talking about are far enough on the south.
There's a
There's-
couple of things we talked about in relation to your concerns, Stephen. One is that I've asked all three of those guys to come down and fill out a volunteer form like I did in the spring when I was in here helping myself to city records. And that should cover some of the liability issue. And the other thing is that we don't want a great big huge crew. We want a limited crew up there of guys that will be picked by those three fellas that know what they're doing. And so that we can keep real tight control of what happens up there. Because they've taken down enough between the three of them that they have a good idea of using ropes or cables to put stress on the tree to get it to fall the right place. They have the equipment to do that, and I have a lot of faith in them to be able to do that fairly carefully.
Yeah. Jim and I took down several trees at the golf course.
Which
When I-
which one?
Jim Ells.
Okay.
Yeah, we're referring to ourselves as three gyms in a stand.
Or are you gonna change the name to Jim?
Well, we thought with three gyms in a
And-
stand, if any of us were musical, we could get up a rock band.
Some kind of a band anyway, huh?
And when you're gonna do this, what was talked,
Haven't picked a date yet.
no, but stump wise, are they gonna remove the stump?
They're gonna leave it up, down, cut flush, any conversation with that?
They figured we'd have to leave enough stump above ground level so that you wouldn't hit it with a mower. But the stump that's there, they drilled holes and they put stuff into the holes that kills the stump and kills the roots, and then it can be chipped out in the whole field later.
I have no problem, but I don't make all those kind of decisions. I think the only thing I would be concerned about would be liabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Your concern is very valid, Stephen, and we did discuss that at some length.
And who actually is gonna make the decisions for the cemetery. I think all of the people that you're talking about, the 3 gyms and a stand,
And a stand.
yeah, and a stand, okay?
I heard
All
some-
have people in the cemetery, so there's some intimate concern there.
We all have a personal investment up there, yes.
Yes.
I have
I
no problem
will-
with it. I don't have a problem with either, but if you would indulge me, I'll check with our insurance company and see if there's any pitfalls that
Of
we
course.
should be aware of. If that's okay with you guys?
Yeah.
And I think I would like to hear from the men in charge of doing the primary cutting to describe, maybe we walk up through there. Not so much the liability, like they sign the form, in theory, I guess that indemnifies us from the liability if they injure themselves. But again, if anything goes wrong as far as how the tree falls, we're the ones that back that up financially. So I think it just behooves us as a council to make sure that we feel, and it's not anything personal, I mean,
No.
my experience with those guys is to say that I would trust them to do such a thing. But I think just before we would put a stamp of approval on it as a city, we should at least say that we did our due diligence to hear the complete description, to hear a little bit about what each guy has done with trees, which I'm sure is probably extensive, and then we take our chances and sign off on it. But
When I worked up at the ski lodge, I watched guys drop a tree within a 1 foot
Mhm.
variance perfectly, time and time and time and time and time again, and on that 23rd tree, nothing went right.
We spent some time talking about these things. This afternoon was sort of a preliminary walkthrough. We felt like we spent as much time as we needed to for the stage we're at on this. And if we get serious about having a volunteer crew do it, we would have to be very carefully identifying each of the trees that we would work on and discuss the procedure we'd use for bringing them down and where they'd fall and all that kind of thing.
Can I assume most of these are not the huge locusts like we were talking to most of these?
Some of them are.
Yeah? There's several small ones on the south and the east side that are looking pretty sad.
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
We pretty much looked at all of the ones that were identified in that list you sent me. And we also looked at 2 or 3 others in addition to that.
There was a whole lot of them we didn't even get those guys involved in because there wasn't enough headstones around them. If they went down, we'd deal with it.
Yeah,
The biggest concern we had was with liability for the cemetery with these. Those are huge trees that we talked to the professionals about.
we're looking at probably spreading this over some period of time and doing it as steps. Instead of
Get them in there and out in 2 days?
Instead of having a big crew and trying to get it all done in a day or two, it makes more sense to keep it a controlled operation and do it a few at a time as we can keep in control and make things happen the way they need to.
So talk to me about chips. Not right now, but I have a place.
Chips?
Yeah.
Wood chips?
Yeah.
A place to put them?
Yes,
Oh, okay,
in town here.
okay. Thank you, that's all I have for tonight.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Stan. Anybody else?
I was just gonna say, and I forgot
insurance person here, but I work for the Department of Employment Security and the other one that has to do with this.
Labor and Industries?
Yes,
Illinois.
and if you're working, you just can't sign away a form that says if I'm hurt, you have to pay, but you have to pay the insurance. It's not so necessarily.
As a
expensive.
volunteer, you
As
said,
a volunteer, you
Who-
cannot sign away your rights to protect yourself from injury.
okay,
Add
Well-
that to the list.
yeah, we need to check that out and make sure that,
That's just the way it was when I was working, because we had work experience people out in the field, and whenever they were volunteering and it was work experience, no pay, we had to pay insurance for them.
You had to pay claims because they got hurt. Like
They didn't have
Habitat for,
health insurance.
like Habitat for Humanity, somebody gets a board knocked
Right,
on
yeah.
top of their head and, okay.
That falls into labor
it's just a bunch
industries,
of old
doesn't it?
guys.
The nature of that'll be sticky though, because what we find out there might drive us to the point of not being able to accept any volunteer labor on behalf of the city.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's-
true.
Yeah, but
Or you
I mean,
just-
I'm not saying that
ignorance
your
of the law
point isn't
doesn't-
legitimate, but I'm saying it might take us to some places
Well, you
we,
could pay for the insurance.
in,
Certainly wouldn't
well,
be as much
right.
as what it would to cut
So they
it
could be
down.
part-time employees, huh?
Yeah, well,
Temporary.
volunteers.
Temporary employees, yeah, which means we pay state industrial on them for,
Correct.
yeah.
And you'd have to pay minimum wage though, too.
I think that's pretty much laid out in the section I read about volunteering in the city handbook, the employee handbook. There's a whole section in there on volunteers.
Well, would we be able to, if you're gonna have to pay them, could you make it that they're their own contractor, private contractor?
They won't, if they're smart, they won't take on that liability.
We're not licensed and bonded.
and if they're their own entity, then we're gonna be looking at them having their own insurance, which is an added to.
So it's something we need to check into.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cover everybody's.
yeah,
Most
yeah.
of those guys, I don't know, Lions Club or into that, what do they do with that?
They've already been up there working
Lions
this
Club
year.
doesn't have an insurance that will take care of that. It'll take care of property, but it's not gonna take care of a liability or
Bodies.
something like that.
Haven't had to deal with that problem yet.
Well, I don't know the answer to that, so.
Yeah,
I guess
I
Joe,
don't-
you're gonna look into that, Joe, right?
I am gonna look into that. And if
Yeah.
you guys are okay with it, I'll just send you an email with my findings to speed things up.
I have a feeling I know what you're doing.
At any rate, you know how to get hold of me, and do.
Thank you, Stan.
Anything else from the floor? Well, would anybody like to entertain a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.